I'm all right. I'm good. Realizing that this next month is about to be a lot, but it'll be fine. Everything's fine.
Mm. Riverside is whining at me that I didn't pick a name. Hang on.
Is whining that you didn't pick a name?
Hmm.
Well, cause let me think. Let me look at this. Um, Zoinks. Yeah, there's gonna be like towards the end of February, going into March. I'm like dying, and it's gonna be great. But it'll be fine. It'll be good. So much, so much interestingness has happened in the past few hours or a few days, I guess you could say.
Oh,
We had two debates
we
that were done.
did.
Yeah.
Did you see what D Wood wore?
I didn't really watch that one. I listened to it. I saw it on a tiny screen. Um, was it? Let me pull it up. Let me pull up his D Wood debate. Where let me see here. Most recent one. Like I said, I listened to it. I didn't watch it. I listened. He's wearing a suit. I see. God, now. Is he wearing a Quran in his clothing somewhere?
Um, you could say that.
Hold on, I'm trying to get a spot where I can just see
He
him.
actually, I think he's streaming right now.
Oh, you're talking about that. I thought you meant the debate.
Oh, no, no, I just meant War 2
Oh.
Debate Con.
Oh. Oh. Let me find out. Oh, the hoodie, the onesie.
Yes, the
Yeah,
onesie.
I did see that. I thought you
It's
meant like we
beautiful.
wore for the debate. It's like, did I miss something? Yeah, I know the onesie with the Quran all
It's
over it.
beautiful.
Oh
It's
yeah, I've
beautiful.
seen. Yeah, it's pretty magnificent.
Jihadi proof,
Jihadi proof.
you know?
Well, like, did you hear his debate?
No, I have not actually had a chance to watch it yet.
So his opening statement was basically about all the doxing and stuff. He was like talking about all the people who were like chickened out. He's like, so thank you for this guy for showing up. He's like, now, before we get started, does anyone want to take a shot at me while I'm sitting here because you all threatened to do something to me? No? All right. And then he just starts
What a
going
guy.
into his opening statement. I
What a guy.
was like, dang, did not hold back there. Who's ready? But anyways, that's not, I guess, today's focus. At least that's what the thumbnail says. Oh,
No,
but
but we don't really we didn't really know what today's was about, so
well, we knew and didn't know. Like we knew what was next, but we also forgot if we skipped something. So I mean, like what we could do is probably is like go through this. This will take a good amount of time, and then when we're done, if we're still cooking through time, we can always take another course of action, if you will. But welcome to February, where we are in the middle of this stream set
excuse
up.
me. There are two R's in February. Thank you.
What did I say?
You said February. It is February.
Did I?
Yeah.
I thought I said February. I must have just
No.
slid. Oh, oops.
I will not. I
But
will
it's
not.
February.
I will not allow any R slander in this live
Oh,
stream.
well, get over it. Get over it. So we're finished. Where we got what we said, like maybe two streams off of this, maybe three. We were leaning towards
Probably,
two
probably two. Yeah.
ish. So we were thinking because we were talking about like how the last
Yeah.
one really could be like it can combine like three of them together because they're all like
Yeah.
so knit together.
Hmm.
So that'll be the last one. Will be next week then, in theory, and then this Thursday, of which, by the way, Caleb, I will be very late to. I have a rehearsal that got booked for one of my musicals.
So I need to come up with something.
No, it's Ramadan or ram it down.
For Thursday, again, Ramadan is better. Um,
Well, this entire
Thurs-
month is just ram it down and terrorism and all those fun things. That's what we said.
I thought we were beginning that on Ramadan.
I thought we were like leading up to it and just doing it the entire month based on the February meeting we had.
Probably, and I just don't recall. I am extremely tired. I had a
That's
very
fine.
long day.
Here, I'll tell everyone what
So
we talked about in our February meeting. And that was February, we were going to start Islam again for the month, and we were going to talk about Ramadan, Bamadan, and we invite all of you to bring snacks for why we do it throughout the entire month, even though it goes into March because it starts like mid-February. But we're supposed to do that. And then I think what we talked about is that you were thinking about doing like two streams, maybe talking about Ramadan specifically, and then talking about the uptick in Muslim responses and all those weirdness. And then there was a fourth one, but I can't remember what it was. That's the one I don't remember. But I remember those three. So I got that much. So then again, you could also just like say postpone and then just watch one of the two debates that just recently happened. I mean, like, and just
that
laugh.
actually might be how we kind of kick it off.
Could just do that. Uh, but yeah.
That or we could
Any-
do like the like people do for awards show and go over their outfits and just spend like a half an hour on D Wood's onesie.
You could. You really, really could.
I still haven't picked a name. I just realized that.
No, no, you're still I'm a minority.
Oh, it doesn't even show that it's blank.
No, it doesn't.
That's gay.
I know you are.
Shut up.
I was in denial.
I think my
Anyways,
wife and child are a denial.
hey, there's some people who are committed to the bit.
Let's just
Anyways,
say I line up with Solomon, and I'll leave it at that.
anyways,
If you know, you know.
so this is our fourth part of our Matthew's New Exodus series. While Caleb's come up with his new name, if you're interested in like going deeper and you need like a guide, a couple interesting resources are helpful. Echoes of Exodus by Alistair J. Roberts and Andrew Wilson. It's a pretty good book. It's pretty short, and it kind of gets you right through it. Make sure that your copy doesn't misprint like my copy. Then again, I haven't seen. I think I'm the only one in the entire review section that had a misprint, so I got a new one for free. Then there's Exodus Old and New by Michael Morales. This is pretty cool as well. It takes a slightly different approach and how it develops it. And I think that's why it's kind of nice is they all just take different uh, layers to going through it. Spending some time, he spends a lot more time like in the first half developing the entirety of the Exodus, and then he jumps to like how it plays out later. Whereas this guy is kind of tracing it from beginning to end, like these different motifs. And lastly, Brian D. Estelle's also Echo of Exodus. Oh, I saw that. His is much thicker in comparison, but what's cool about his is that the introduction to the first chapter is basically establishing the first chapter is called hermeneutical foundations. So if you want to go more in depth on that, and his entire appendix regarding intertextuality. And then he doesn't start with Exodus, he actually starts with Genesis and sees how language in that plays into Exodus and how Exodus really kind of magnifies it. And then it continues on after that. So all three books are pretty cool if you're wanting to get into that a little bit while Caleb was deciding on him being the White Power Ranger. I don't know if you could be the White Power Ranger.
Hang on, then am I technically the Brown Power Ranger?
I don't even think you're technically the Brown Power Ranger either.
What am
You're
I?
not. I don't know. Like the Tan Power Ranger. You made up your new one.
The
Like you're
mixed race
slightly
Power
Jewish, but you're also
Ranger.
slightly white. So we just called you the Woo Ranger. I got you. Don't worry.
No. No, because that just makes it sound like I'm tired. The
The Woo Ranger.
Power Ranger.
Oh, you are tired too,
I
so it
am
works
tired.
both ways.
You're not even gonna ask me how I came up with it.
No, well, okay, how'd you come up with it?
So transfiguration
Yeah,
led
I
to
saw that.
transformation, and
Yeah,
so like I could have gone Transformers,
yeah,
but it's not really like a change like that. The
yeah,
transfiguration, it's more right the full power being revealed. So in that
yeah,
sense, I went with the Power Ranger kind of Mighty Morphing Power
yeah.
Ranger. I went that direction with it.
What would be your Megazord?
Something I probably shouldn't say on stream.
Anyways, Transfiguration. This one we're gonna be talking about again later in a different series that we're already in the middle of at some point. So that'll be fun. Get to talk about it twice in the next few months. But we're basing off of Matthew, so that's gonna be Matthew 17. And just spoiler alert, the obvious parallel is gonna be back to Exodus 34, which is the shining face of Moses. So since we actually have like a direct passage we can tie to, we should probably I think we should start there. Whereas like the 40 days of fasting was, like half the Torah. And then so we couldn't really focus on something there. And then the what was it? Sinai is also half the Torah, so we couldn't start there. Whereas, you know, Sermon on the Mount, we actually start somewhere there.
Yeah.
You're sleepy.
Dude, yes. I am exhausted.
All right. Well, considering that we have currently no one on right now, I think we're okay. So we can probably cut through this a little bit. So I just have right now. This is just 29 to 35. This is what the NIV kind of. Sorry, why are you New King James? I switched you earlier, you little turd. Come back. Hmm. Ooh, so many options. What's the expanded Bible? Never heard of you.
That feels like it would be heresy.
What the heck?
Oh,
It
it kind of like
looks like
gives
it
you
may be
notes
heresy.
on
Oh, interesting.
within the
It
text.
includes like the different ways you can translate certain words that have multiple
Yeah.
meanings.
Excuse me.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, kind of like
I mean, I'd actually have to spend time with it to see if
footnotes
it's actually like
inside
not
the actual text.
sketchy, but like, look, like when Aaron and all the people, sons, children. Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Cool.
I don't want to. We'll play it safe though. We'll go to one we actually know, and then I can look into that later. Ooh, the message.
No.
We're let's do an NIV. Play it safe. All right. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the two tablets of the covenant law in his hands, he was not aware that his face was radiant because he had spoken with the Lord. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, his face was radiant, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community came back to him, and he spoke to them. Afterwards, all the Israelites came near him, and he gave them all the commands the Lord had given him on Mount Sinai. When Moses finished speaking to them, he put a veil over his face. But whenever he entered the Lord's presence to speak with them, he removed the veil until he came out. When he came out, he told the Israelites what he had been commanded. They saw that his face was radiant. Then Moses would put the veil back over his face until he went in to speak with the Lord. Okay, so short section obviously is not like I didn't get the whole extra context stuff in there because I think it kind of lays it out pretty well for us. All right, is the important key details is that is tied to when he's speaking to the Lord. Which what's interesting here is that is whenever he goes in, he unveils his face and then he reveals his face. But it's that it's radiating because he's spending time with the Lord. It's that glory that's being shown through, which I quoted her when we did Image of God series, which was Carmen Joy Imes. And we were going through that. I mentioned that one of the ways that she kind of describes one of the things that's really lost in the garden because we were saying how like the image itself, like that status is still there, but like what does it then mean for humanity? And she said one of the things that is lost is the glory, not humanity's glory, but its glory and its connection to the Lord, and that you don't have that. In Moses' case, you don't have everyone radiating this way. It's not like I hadn't thought about this until because I'm still torn on it. But when I was teaching on it again for our men's group, I was like, so like us as statues, were humanity's broken, but the status isn't, and it's like so the image isn't gone, it's not broken. I was like, but you could argue on one hand that we're empty statues, and I want to say you want to be careful with that because God still breathed into all of humanity, but we're absent of like that divine presence that most idols have, like when we have the Holy Spirit. So if you want to kind of play into that with New Testament language, you can. I don't know if you can play that's like totally into that with Old Testament for the original audience, but if you can play with New Testament for canonical argument, I think you can do that. I'm still playing with my head to think if that's a good way to articulate things without it breaking down regarding ethics and some other stuff and consistency. But that idea of that glory and connection. But what's interesting is that Moses has to keep covering that face. I think because people it causes this fear. I don't know, I just think that's really interesting that you have all these things tied to like when it comes to God and His presence, that there's like this fear of something, whether it be of death or of like not knowing what's going on. Like you can't see my face or you'll die. Or when Gideon realized he saw the angel of the Lord and he didn't die, he's like, oh my goodness, I didn't die. And Yahweh's like, yeah, you're fine. You're going to be fine. But then other people aren't freaking out about that when it comes to the angel of the Lord, or that's that second power. But then you have Moses here where they're in fear. There's that fear that comes over them. I just think it's really interesting that you have this fear connection, like in some way, almost every single time.
Yeah, and I think so. As you mentioned, right, it could be a few things. Could be fear of death. Could be just confusion. I think to a greater degree, in my mind at least, it's a fear of God, right? Of
Sure.
like this is simply the radiance that is like being reflected by Moses. Right? This is not the
Yeah.
fullness of the glory, and even the people are like unable to look at him. Right? He has to have
Right.
a veil over his face because the shining is just too much for them.
Right.
Imagine what it's like then to actually have the glory of God before you.
Right.
Right? So
Man.
I mean, obviously we can't speak to the mindset of the people,
Sure.
but I think it's safe to say that at least in the text underlying it, there's that idea that, Moses was shining so brightly he needed a veil. Imagine what it's like for God. Right? Kind of getting into the Ezekiel 1 sighting,
Mm.
right? Where he sees in the fire, he sees a gleam like amber. It's like,
Yeah.
hang on, he saw something gleaming in the fire? Like, how bright was that thing?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's a wild chapter.
Mhm.
So much really interesting, fascinating imagery there. But yeah,
I will
that
say,
that.
no, go ahead.
What? No, no, no. You first.
I was going to change topics, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the interesting thing is that this glory, at least in this context, if we were to like back up like a verse, it comes when he's coming down with the two tablets. So it's coming down with that um, written word of God, which we don't know exactly when Genesis would have been written in comparison to like all the books and when they're in the wilderness. Like we know it was probably like during their time there, and if we understand tradition to be true, with Moses being the writer of that, it had to have happened sometime in there. But we don't know when that was in relationship to all of these things when he penned, those five books in regards to the timeline here. But this would have been like one of the first like written things they would have had that be associated with like word of God, if you will. And it's when he's coming down with that there's that radiance, but then that radiance continues on the more time he spends with them. So like if I were to like back up from like just a practical application for humanity, that the glory of God radiating through people. I'm not saying we're gonna all shine like a bunch of like night lights, um, or on a greater scale, like to everything. But like the idea of like there's something that shows like for Moses that consistent connection to God, that consistent time with him. There was some kind of radiance with that. And considering that the new covenant kind of brings this newer picture now where we're all we're all members of the temple, we're all priests in some aspect, and Christ is the high priest. There's that level of like the more time you spend with the Lord, and I don't just mean being in your Bible, I mean like in prayer and actual communication, all these things with them. It definitely changes not just your personality, but it kind of radiates out of you in a in a different sense. In this case, a light, whatever the heck that is, whatever that really is going on, like all that stuff going on there. But like there's still that it's evident in some way, which is why they, like Paul goes on about how they will Jesus and Paul, I guess he really goes on about how they'll know you by your fruits, they'll know you by the way you love, they'll know you by the way you act. They will just know because it just pours out and radiates out of you.
So we shared a brain cell right there because that's exactly where I was about to take it.
Really
Yeah,
nice.
that is exactly what I was going to pivot to, and just how Moses radiates God's glory, from time with him, we do the same, obviously not literally, but in that more spiritual sense. So
Yeah,
I'm glad we could share a brain cell.
dude. Imagine you're just there and then you see this dude coming down and his face is glowing. I would be. I think there is the fear of the Lord there. There'll also be like the what the heck? There's like my this guy's face is glowing. What does that mean? What's happening here? Like that would just be that would also like more I think that would also be just kind of like what the heck. But here's the other thing interesting too, because we're gonna see it reversed. I guess you could say a little bit with the parallel passage for Jesus, where um maybe not reversed actually. Now I'm starting to think about it, but like the knowing of its radiation, like radiance, is coming from when he's coming down the mountain. But for we're gonna see with Jesus in this case. So if I go there now, unless you have any other thoughts on Exodus,
No, fairly straightforward, I think.
yeah. So if we go to like Matthew 17, what's interesting is that
I have the
Peter
Greek
and
as well.
James and John are up there with him. So it's not when he's coming down that they see that glory. It's while he's still up there on that mountain. Which I don't. That just already is kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it
I'll
already
just
kind
repeat.
of
I'll
it
just
already
quickly
kind
read.
of highlights the fact that through Christ we can experience the divine,
Yeah.
right?
But here,
Whereas
what I'll do is
Moses
I'll
didn't have
read
that
this,
much.
and then I guess we can go through some different thoughts. I know that you might be too tired now. I know you've had many thoughts before, so so if you want to cook, go for it. But if you're
I
also
don't
like,
know how
I'm
much
dead.
I was gonna say I don't know how much cooking there's gonna be, but
So
I'll communicate.
after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I'll put three shelters, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Don't be afraid. When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The disciples asked him, Why then do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first? Jesus replied, To be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things, but I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist. Okay, so I think the obvious parallel is the fact that both of them are glowing, except
Yeah.
now instead of just the face glowing, Jesus' clothes is also glowing. So we have like a even brighter glory and radiance
I wonder
from
why
this.
that is.
I don't know. What could it possibly mean? If you were
Yeah.
not
I'm
Trinitarian.
I'm looking at the Greek. There's not. I don't think there's really anything that like pops out as oh this is really cool. And specifically in the Greek, it's
No.
pretty
But yeah.
standard. I mean,
So
maybe if I pulled up the Septuagint, I'd see something, but I don't
mm.
feel like doing that right now. I'm too tired.
Well, okay. Let's start with this. So we have Jesus up there with three of his disciples. They're on the mountain and it's up high. I don't remember if it's in a recording. I shared what scholars today are thinking what it was versus theologians prior, just based on stuff going around. And there's the two big options. If I remember, it was, oh no, which mountains were it? One was Mount, um, what would have been known as Mount Bashan, um, which was in Caesarea Philippi, and the other one, I'm forgetting what it's called. It starts with a T. Um, it'll come back to me eventually. But there's two different mountains that are kind of anyway. The whole point is up in a high mountain, and there was like two candidates for what it could be. But he's transfigured there, face shone like a sun, like the sun. So there's your Moses parallel. But then his clothes became as white as the light. I don't think I've ever seen a white light. So that's just kind of personally, I don't think I've seen a white light other than like in movies. Usually they're like slightly yellow. So that's just kind of like
Yeah.
holy smokes, that's bright and like blinding. But what's interesting is that you then have the appearance of Moses and Elijah with Jesus, and there's a couple interesting theories out there. I'm not automatically persuaded by any one particular, but they're just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think the really important point is that you have on this mountain, you have two prophets who have also spoken to God on a mountain, of which we're kind of going through right now.
Yeah.
But that's what sparked a couple theories. Like one theory that I know you know this one, but it's the theory that there's some kind of weird time warp overlap thing
Yeah. Where
happening
it's
here.
Moses on Sinai talking to God as at the same time that Elijah is on Carmel talking to God, and here's Christ. So it's like these events are all happening contemporaneously. While that's a cool thought, I don't see a reason for that necessarily.
Yeah.
Right? Because Elijah never experiences death, and it's just taken up to the Lord. Moses does die, but that we know from 1 Samuel 28, 29, whichever one the medium is. I think it's 28. That God has command over the spirits and can send someone back if need be. So it's like it doesn't really make any. It doesn't make sense to say that it's anything except for what it looks to be. But I don't know. Cool theory.
It's a cool theory, and the Bible doesn't really play into time that much too. Not saying it can't, but it doesn't really play into like the whole question of God's relationship to time, like like temporality and timelessness and debates that happen within there. Doesn't play into like going back in time. It keeps moving forward in a. If I were to put a time philosophy on it, it follows a very temporal because it's within constructs of God and His people and their relationship ongoing and that extrinsic change in relationship as it kind of goes on. So like just from a consistency point, I don't really see a reason to hold on to that, but it's really interesting to kind of think about because God could do that if He wanted to. But
Yeah, I mean it's certainly possible. It's kind of buddy asked me recently if I was a Molinist, and I said Molinism is possible and unnecessary. Right? This kind of falls into that same category for me. Possible, unnecessary.
yeah, I remember I was looking into Molism. I had a friend who was trying to understand the different viewpoints on all that, and I was like looking into it, and then my brain just kind of shut down after like all of the arguments going on at once between all of them. I was like, all right, hold on, I need a break. I am getting them confused now because sometimes they
Yeah.
just sound too similar, or sometimes they sound so drastically different. I was like, all right, let's pedal backwards for a second. But yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think the
yeah.
key
No.
important detail is like you have. I don't know. The important detail is that you have that there's these three prophets, but one is divine and is transfigured more than the other two ever have been. Even that, I don't remember Elijah ever was described as.
I don't
transfigured in
believe
any
so.
case. So like,
The only case you could make is at his ascension,
right.
really. But even
So
then,
you have like two prophets who have like these I guess you could say
I would
like,
say two prophets with the most intimate relationship with God.
sure. And then there's this one who is the son, as he always just comes out and says, "Yeah, that's my son right there."
Yeah. Well, and I love the way it happens too, right? So you get let's kind of look at the different moments here, right? So
Sure.
Moses on Sinai goes up into a cloud
Yeah.
and disappears from sight, and then comes back down and is radiant. Right?
Right.
Elijah sees clouds off in the distance, right? And then all of these terrifying, natural disaster event like things happen, and then he speaks with God,
Yeah.
right? Once again, we have the appearance of the cloud,
Yeah. We do.
right? And it's after Peter does, God bless him, put his foot right in his mouth. Um, again, he meant well, but
Yeah.
Peter does Peter things. Um, so you know this cloud once again appears, right? And we look back to the Exodus where you had the pillar of cloud, right, which is supposed which contains the contains I don't want to say contains God, but like is the visual representation of God leading them forward, right? So that way they can follow this, they can literally follow God physically to where he's leading them.
Right.
So you have this repeating motif of cloud, right? Wherever God shows up on a mountain, there is a cloud. What's interesting here is you have the cloud descending. It says, while he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, right? So
Yeah.
it's this, it's kind of funny for us as Trinitarians. Is the Father the cloud? Right? Like, is this appearance of God in some type of cloud? Like, is it disguising the Father's glory, or what exactly is happening? Right? I
Right.
guess is the question with the cloud motif that we see time and time again. Um, I can't. My brain isn't synapsing, and I'm going to chalk that up to being exhausted. But hopefully, my word ramblings came out clearly.
Yeah. I mean, like, the interesting thing is that you have most of those. We have the fact as the father is the one that is speaking. So like, and we've seen the spirit has been guiding and like present with Christ in whatever sense that is. And we see the father tied to also being like writer of the clouds prior to mentioning of the Son of Man as well, or like up in the clouds and we see some kind of figure. Like you have the Ancient of Days. Um, you could go back and forth on specifics of Ezekiel 1. Like who was that really? Was that the manifestation of the second power? Was that the first power on his throne? And then the second power appears later. But yeah, it's that interesting question of like, typically most of the time we get like this physical manifestation of Yahweh. Usually it's tied to, in some cases, what we would refer to based on the presentation I did, like the second power, right? Because that one's usually pointing to the first power, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have cases where the first power is an appearance. The Father is in an appearance of some sort, or
Right.
he appears in something, but he himself is not manifested in some capacity. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
to that question, like, is it just a cloud or is there something in the cloud? Is he just studying the cloud because of what it's supposed to bring back to their mind of? Because you also have Moses and Elijah there. Um, or is or is there a figure that he's manifest himself as within those clouds?
Right.
There's like all those really interesting kind of questions.
And the beauty of Scripture is that it doesn't answer it.
No, it doesn't. It's just like,
Right.
oh yeah,
And that's what I love about Scripture is like to cement that there are things that you don't need to know. It's just not going to tell you,
yeah,
and you're just gonna have to deal with that.
yeah. I think it's interesting too is that we do get that fear again, but that fear is not for the transfigured one. Is when the father shows up and starts speaking, and they're like, "Ah, shoot, what's happening now?" It's kind of like the that fear of God, like you were talking about. That fear of God comes that kicks in because this cloud is, there's a voice from this cloud, and from that cloud says, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." And then they drop to the ground terrified, and then he says, "Get up, don't be afraid. Get over it. You'll be fine." And after that, Moses, Elijah, and the clouds are gone. It's just Jesus there. Uh, so I'm trying to remember. It doesn't say in here. Maybe in the other accounts it does. I'm trying to remember like if there was a passage that says like when he stopped being transfigured, or if it was after um they looked up that he went back to being regular looking Jesus. I don't really remember off the top of my head. I feel like there was a passage. It might have been Mark. I might also be like assuming there was one, and I could just be completely wrong on that part. But
I agree.
thanks. You even know what I was saying, do you?
Frickin' guy. Okay, so I just got up to turn my fireplace off because I thought it was making too much noise, and right
Your
as I
heater
do
kicked
that, the
on.
heat kicks on.
You're fine on here, really.
Oh,
You're
you would.
fine.
Yeah, there it is.
I was just saying that I couldn't remember if there was specifically a passage that described when he ceased to be transfigured, or if it was just one I just kind of assumed. If it was like if there was a passage that said like like after this went away that it was him in regular form, or if it was as they descend the mountain he went back to normal. I couldn't remember if there actually for some reason I felt like there was one, but I feel like that might have also been like a conversation from like back in youth group days when we talked about this passage. And I can just remembering a conversation from there about that in the back of my head.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think there is a specific mention of any sort of, and he went back to normal. I think it's kind of implied to me right at verse 7,
yeah,
right? But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said, don't be afraid. And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus, right? To me, that's kind of like when he comes over and touches them, he's returned to just uh, the non glorified state.
yeah. I think what's also interesting is Moses veiled himself before the people, and Jesus ain't veiling anything from these three. I mean, you could say he veils himself again when he goes when after this whole thing happens and they're going down. So there's that veiling, but for the three witnesses there is no veiling of this, and there is no veiling of God's glory shining through him.
Well, and notice who's there,
Yeah,
right? You get Peter, right, arguably Christ's closest friend and follower. James, the first martyr. Well, I mean Stephen is, but right, the first of the apostles to be martyred,
yeah.
I should say. Um, and then John,
Who outran
who
Peter?
who outran Peter, but more significantly, um, writes Revelation,
Yeah.
right, where he sees God's glory again. So these three people are not here by accident, right?
No, yeah. It's all just really interesting. You have the glory of this. You get this a whole lot of teachings from this. You also have right after this Jesus healing a possessed boy. Um which is kind of cool. Like there's like a spiritual battle thing that comes right after this, but you get the unveiling, if you will, sorry, the veiling and unveiling. You get the glory of God shining through. You get a message from Yahweh of some sort, and I think the only difference is that the only big difference is one. I guess there's a couple differences. One, there's not a huge number of people. Two, there aren't any tablets in this one, and three, Jesus' clothes is shining too, unlike Moses. So there's like the Jesus doesn't have to come with those tablets. He is the tablet, if you will. Like he is the one that has the message. He's not bringing these messages. He is the message, which
Which
is
is further highlighted in a stream that we did talking about the Sermon on the Mount and the fulfillment of the law.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah. Self plugs galore.
self plugs galore. Um, you have any other thoughts on this? I kind of all my big thoughts because I there's more to be said about the Transfiguration, but like regarding the motif tying, I guess you could say there's it kind of sums up everything. I think we got a number of it.
Well, so it's interesting that Elijah is mentioned a lot here, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Towards bottom.
But yeah, because you get obviously Moses and Elijah there. Well, it's something. So something I do want to bring up, and it's not so much to do with the motif. Um, it is a little bit. Is that the disciples, Peter, James, John, know who Jesus is talking to? Right. We kind of
Oh yeah.
gloss
Yeah.
over that point. At no point are we told that Jesus introduces them or they introduce themselves. It's just boom. All right, here's Moses and Elijah, and Peter, James, and John, even just by looking at them, immediately know who it is. That's incredible, right? Whether they were given that knowledge just divinely in that moment, or whether they looked at him and went, well, there's no one else that could be, right? Like, does Elijah appear inside of a flaming chariot? Because if so, that's one of the sickest entrances of all time. But anyway, so Elijah here is mentioned towards the bottom as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that he is mentioned again, but Moses is not. Right. Now, I understand that they are looking at the prophecy aspect, right, and trying to figure out what they just witnessed and how that ties into everything that they know. But certainly, passages like Deuteronomy, oh my goodness, I'm blinking. Again, I'm going to blame tiredness, right? Raise up a prophet from their people. What passage is that?
I think you're right. It's Deuteronomy. Is it praise a prophet like me or from the people?
I mean, either or.
The raising up a prophet like me is Deuteronomy 18.
18. Okay. Yeah. So right, you could get this allusion here to Deuteronomy 18, right? Because now you have a prophet who is like Moses speaking with Moses, right? Because you get that passage. I would argue is twofold, both about Joshua and about technically Joshua, but uh, and about Jesus, right? Yeshua and Yeshua, uh, which is kind of funny then that that's who he's talking about in that passage. He is talking about Yeshua, just so we're all aware. Um, but it's interesting that that connection is not explicitly stated here, whereas Elijah's is, right? And I realize it's connecting it back to John the Baptist, and so Christ is kind of saying, hey, just like John the Baptist suffered and died, I too am going to suffer and die. And then I love how he even says the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. and that, you know, we, with the benefit of hindsight, go, well, obviously he's going to be talking about his resurrection. The disciples are like, oh, he's talking about the resurrection, right? Not his resurrection specifically, just the resurrection.
Right.
And so I think that's helpful for framing, you know, why the disciples reacted the way they did to Jesus' arrest and execution.
Mm.
Um, but again, I find it interesting here that Elijah is very much highlighted, yet Moses, arguably the greatest prophet, I certainly think from a Jewish context, the greatest prophet, is left out here.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's interesting how if we take into the prophet parallels that you have, Jesus is the the greater of all the prophets, but as we've been seeing, he's been tied to
You're going
like
where I'm going.
the Moses and Israel, but then you
Yes.
also have John being the Elijah.
Right.
Um,
Yes. You were going where I was going.
okay,
So I was kind of leading, nudging there. Elijah is mentioned because he's not there. Right. I mean, obviously, the actual Elijah was just there, but Elijah, in the sense of this connection, is not there. Right? John the Baptist at this point has been beheaded, I believe. Right.
I think so. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's Matthew 13. He is. Um, so Elijah is taught has to be talked about because he's not there. Moses is there.
Yeah.
Right? Moses is the one communicating with them right now, right? Jesus is the new Moses, right? So when I say from the Jewish perspective, which again is the audience that Matthew is writing to, from the Jewish perspective, the greatest prophet is there. Jesus is the new Moses. He is the fulfillment there. He is the greatest prophet. He is now carrying that torch. Right? So for my money, right, this the transfiguration, this moment kind of acts as an official like Moses passing the torch,
Mm,
right? Of okay, my duty is now done. Right? I came, we spoke, you've already completed the law. You've already given the teachings that demonstrate the fulfillment of the law. It is now time for you to be, confirmed essentially as the greatest prophet. And Elijah is, I would say, probably the second greatest prophet in Israel, and I don't think that's particularly controversial. Um, and he then puts forward, like, sort of as a witness, right, as a testifier, which then feeds back into John the Baptist as the testimony of Christ.
right.
It's like poetry; it rhymes.
Yeah, it's always really kind of interesting how all these prophetic imagery. I don't know if I want prophetic imagery. Because I think the tying of these prophets together, if you will, where you have Matthew's playing deeply. I mean, all the gospel authors, but especially Mark and Matthew, are playing deeply into the idea of, yep, Jesus is the new Israel. Jesus is the new Moses. Again, the other ones play into it too, but John plays he plays into that, but he also plays a little bit more into the tabernacle element more, which is also tied to the Exodus and everything. But you have the Elijah figure where Jesus is the greater prophet of like all of them. Like he's the greater Hosea, the greater Jonah, definitely the greater Jonah, the better Moses, the better Ezekiel, and Elijah, all of them. But then, as you just kind of articulated, that Elijah's mentioned again in the spirit because there's that prophecy that Elijah will come again, and Jesus saying, "Yeah, he did come." John, it's the guy. He's the guy, and what's interesting is that Jesus also, you were kind of going on about how um Elijah being like the second greatest prophet, probably in the Jewish mind. But then you also have Jesus, who we all know is supposed to be the greatest, saying that, no one is greater than, like, no one has been greater than John. So, like, even John, in the way Jesus is teaching, has excelled past the prophets in being the new Elijah. Which, and then if you have John surpassing that, but Jesus even surpasses that even more. Like, you can go through the whole divine pack, but even just talking about like the how much greater Jesus is, and now tack on that divine part, how much even greater is he? Because
Right.
Elijah in his mind surpasses that, and now he's surpassing John and Elijah.
Right. And to kind of tack that on, right? So a lot of these prophets, uh, some of the prophets, I should say, see God. Right. Moses, Ezekiel, whom you mentioned, right? Jesus is like the greater Ezekiel. Um, one can argue that Jonah might have met God, uh, but right, all of these prophets that see and speak with God. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe Elijah actually sees God.
Can't remember off the top of my head.
Right? Obviously, he speaks with God and he hears from God.
I would imagine. I would
But
imagine. I think he did. At least in the text,
did he?
I don't recall. Most of the prophets, you can almost assume based on how they all, when they describe their calling, it's in the throne room, whether it be in a vision or like something.
Hmm. I don't
Um,
remember the calling of Elijah off the top of my head.
I'll have to look. Yeah, I'll do a quick little side quest. Elijah experienced a direct personal revelation of God on Mount Horeb. Mentions the Lord is about to pass by. There was a great wind so strong that was splitting mountains and breaking. Blah, 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 blah.
But anyway, so honestly, it doesn't really particularly matter to the overall point that I'm making, which was Moses saw God's glory to a degree, right? He saw the back, saw God's back, right? So God still withholds some glory from him because it would kill Moses otherwise. Um, Again, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, I don't believe Elijah actually sees like God in his glory. Again, at least not to the ascension. Right? You can argue there. Um,
At least not
Perhaps he
according to the
did.
text.
Right. Right. It's never explicitly stated. Is
Yeah.
where I'm kind of getting at. So John the Baptist doesn't either,
Yeah.
right? But Christ obviously has seen God in glory. He is God in glory. Um, so then again, you have as you were saying, right? Like Jesus is now above Elijah, right? And he is, to also be clear, he is in some ways the new Elijah, right? He also ascends, but he ascends not after having escaped death, but after having conquered it. Right. So he is that in that sense the new Elijah. Um, but more pertinent to this passage, it's kind of, again, I can hear your dogs. I can kind of no, it's fine. You have to mute. It was funny. I was just kind of, how's the puppy?
He's over 2.5 pounds.
Okay, so doing well.
He's growing well, and he's trying to stand. He's been trying to stand,
Cool.
which has been fun.
Um, yeah, but anyway, so yes, John the Baptist and Elijah not inherently not having the same experience that Moses did. Right? It's kind of that same vein of right? Moses is the greatest prophet, and Christ is the new Moses, right? Christ is the new greatest, right? And Elijah, who bears witness many times over, John the Baptist in this case, is the one bearing witness, testifying. I feel like you're still looking, still hunting.
I found something. Just one kind of a cool parallel, but I'll let you finish your thought before I pull it up.
That was pretty much the end of my thought.
Okay, so
You do you, boo.
I was going through Elijah's stuff. Here's a fun one. So all at once, an angel. So we have Elijah's afraid. He's running for his life, and so he's up. Um, he left his servant there while he himself went a days into the wilderness. Go through all at once. The angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around and he ate. And then it says, "The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, 'Get up, drink so much food.' So he got up and drank, strengthened by the food. He traveled 40 days, 40 nights
Hey, what do you
until he
know?
reached Horeb, the mountain of God. So we get another 40 days, 40 nights in the wilderness, approaching the mountain with Elijah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I'm going to argue that perhaps he saw maybe not God in the same way Moses did, but based on the presentation we went through. And the word of the Lord came
Right.
to him.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. No.
and
That,
the
that that's
word
fair.
is
But
speaking.
yeah, the point I was making was more so overall, like God's glory, right?
That's why I
Like
was just saying that you don't get the
yeah.
same kind, but you get like you
Right.
get some interaction, some physical, but it's not the I'm turning my back type of thing.
Yeah.
So this was actually me kind of just slightly emphasizing your point
Ye.
because we get something. So it's kind of like John the Baptist, where he
Ye.
sees Yahweh, but he doesn't see Yahweh in his glory or the back of him in some essence, like Moses does. But he still sees that human form of Yahweh. So there's your Elijah John parallel, if you want to argue technically. Another one. But yeah, he also goes through the 40 days, 40 nights,
Enough of
approaching
mine.
Mount Horeb, of which, if I remember correctly, Horeb God is. Aha! And Horeb is around, I think, the same location, if not the same location as Sinai. So, we're going back to that mountain, or that region at least,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun. Nice.
That's pretty much all I got.
That's all I got, too.
Cool beans.
Well, you look tired, so we don't have to stay on this whole stream. I don't think we have anyone pop in the comments right now.
Yeah. No. Chat is silent. All is quiet on the Western Front.
That's fine. Well, I say we end early.
Cool beans.
You want me to outro, or because you're too tired, or do you want to try to do a tired outro?
If you want to see more of me looking dead-eyed into the camera and probably also a little dead inside, go ahead and Josh gave me a weird look. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let us know what kind of topics you are interested in. And of course, like and subscribe because who doesn't want this type of thrilling content where I stare into the camera, mouth breathing a little bit? With all that said, we do hope you enjoyed this. And Lord willing, we will see you in the next one. Peace.